Free agency winners and losers in the fantasy realm right now on FFT Express. Okay, sorry, Dave, I'm all over the place. We've got, we got to talk about the Steelers backfield, the Panthers backfield, Evan Engram to the Broncos. That's some new news since the last time we spoke, but who are some winners for you so far in free agency?
Let's just start. I don't know if this is the big winner, but Evan Engram going to Denver, I don't like it. I love it. I think it's a great fit for the Broncos. Real opportunity for Evan Engram to be the number 2 target getter in that offense. Do you know that the number 2 target getter in that offense last year was Davante Williams? How terrible is that for Denver? So now they've got a wide receiver that plays tight end, a mismatch piece, a joker piece, if you will, that Sean Payton's been looking for. I think the combination of the play designing and play calling of Sean Payton with the short area throws that Bo Nix has made a lot of, at least in the last year. His ADOT was real low. We talked about that on the main show. Combined with where Evan Ingram's been deployed over the last 3 seasons, which is as a short area target and an after the catch guy, I think it's a great fit all the way around. He's a top 10 fantasy tight end for me, and one of 2 tight ends that I'm going to target if I don't get one of the first 5, maybe 6 tight ends that are going to be consensus on draft day. So I'm excited for him. Can I name another player at a different position that I am as excited about or more excited about? I think I can. 2 wide receivers that won, and this is just overall in free agency, Adam. I'm taking you in a different direction.
Yeah.
Where you took me. JSN in Seattle, Davante Adams in LA with the Rams. I think that both of them will get a lot of targets. JSN certainly should get a ton of them. Probably will average more targets per game than Davante Adams. That's an offense, even with Sam Darnold there. I know, think what you will about Sam Darnold. He can get JSN the ball, and I think JSN's going to get the ball a lot. I think a 100-catch season cannot be ruled out without question for Jackson Smith and Jigba. I've got him as a top 15 wide receiver in full PPR as we sit here now. But you could see him moving up a little bit. And as long as Seattle doesn't make a big splash at wide receiver, I think JSN could be really, really good. Remember last year, he averaged 14.9 PPR points per game. That was with DK Metcalf. That was with Tyler Lockett. And that was with Geno Smith. But it is something to keep an eye on with JSN. And then Davante Adams is just a terrific fit. We've talked about him on the main show a bunch, so I'll be really brief here. Should be around 8 targets per game. That would be low for Davante Adams over the course of his career. But this is another situation where the play designs are great, the coaching is great. Puka Nacua is going to be the number 1, so Davante Adams won't get coverage like a number 1, and they do have a lot of concentrated targets in that offense. I think Davante Adams will be a very good number 2 fantasy wide receiver. Those are 2 guys who I'm more excited about than Evan Engram.
One team that's being linked to Cooper Kupp, by the way, is Seattle, and how that would relate to Jackson Smith and Jigba. I would like that for JSN. I actually think that would get JSN to play a little bit more on the outside because Kupp is also a slot receiver. Your thoughts on if Kupp went to Seattle?
I don't know if that would be so great, just because now we'd have 2 wide receivers that are versatile enough to play inside or outside, great route runners, great hands, good size, but neither one of them are burners.
Yeah.
And so like the whole after catch thing, it's going to take defensive mistakes, certainly for Kupp, but also for JSN. And just like there are so many teams being linked to Cooper Kupp right now, no one's really talking about the downside with Kupp. So I'm a little nervous that somebody's going to overpay for Cooper Kupp as a free agent, and they'll get half a season out of him. They won't get, numbers like he had a few years ago out of him. Certainly makes me nervous. Cooper Kupp, probably somebody who will not be a top 36 wide receiver for me this coming year.
All right, some winners for me, just kind of players we don't really talk about. I think Christian Kirk re-enters the fantasy relevance discussion as a number 3 receiver in full PPR. It's not a huge win or anything like that, but I think he can have a nice season. And I think Ricky Pearsall is set
and Joel Jennings.
Yeah, I have a hard time figuring out who I like better. We didn't see much from Ricky Pearsall, but he's a first-round pick. Jennings, I kind of feel like he may have hit his ceiling a little bit last year. The more he played, he wasn't great. But obviously, they have big opportunities with Deebo Samuel being traded and Ayuk recovering from an injury. However, offensive line issues there. I'm curious to see what the 49ers are able to do in the draft because they do have some big holes. Okay, we'll be right back with losers from free agency after this. Okay, Dave, who are some losers? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Panthers backfield and if you think Chuba Hubbard is a loser and if you think Cortland Sutton is a loser.
I don't think Sutton's a loser because I still think he'll lead the Broncos in targets. I think they know what they're getting out of him. He'll score a bunch of touchdowns. He's good as a borderline wide receiver too. Chuba Hubbard was never like a top 15 running back for me in full PPR. And so I'm not going to move him down that much, if at all. Still view him as a top 20 guy. I don't see him as a major loser whatsoever just because Rico Dowdle's there. Dowdle will be at best the 1B running back. But I don't see that as really being an issue for Chuba Hubbard. I wouldn't prioritize Chuba when it comes to the RB2 range.
I don't know how I feel about this one yet. It's really tough. This is what I think. I think if Chuba Hubbard struggles, then he has a capable backup now. And I don't like that for him because I don't put it past him struggling. He hasn't really had that great of a career until this phenomenal breakout year in 2024. He goes back to being the running back he was before that. He's pretty much, just the guy. He's a jag. And if he struggles, then there's no reason why they shouldn't give Rico Dowdle some work. So I would say that, I don't think Dowdle poses that much of a threat to him if Chuba Hubbard has the starting job, which I suspect he will, and then comes out of it, does well. Does what he did last year. It's not going to affect him. I don't think Dowdle's going to be the third down back or anything like that.
Agreed.
But if he struggles, this is competition. So I'm probably going to be a little hesitant to draft Chuba Hubbard unless it's in round 5 or later.
And I don't think you're going to get him that late. I think he'll end up going as a late round 4 pick.
Yeah. Well, obviously we'll follow the reporting on that one. Did you think Terry McLaurin was a loser with Debo added? Did you think that Puka Nacua was a loser?
No. Also not losers at all. I don't think they go up. I think if there's a loser at wide receiver to talk about, it's Garrett Wilson with Justin Fields coming to New York and being their starting quarterback. We can assume that that'll mean a downtick in pass attempts just overall for the Jets. And certainly the types of throws that Justin Fields will give Garrett Wilson might not be the same as what Aaron Rodgers did. And it could be a lot worse. We do not know Justin Fields to be a great pinpoint accurate thrower, especially on downfield stuff. So Garrett Wilson, amazing talent, one of my favorites, not a top 15 wide receiver for me going into this year. And depending on what else the Jets do at wide receiver, he might not be even like a top 24 guy. Could be somebody that falls out, even though he should get a lot of targets. I just don't know how many of them will be catchable.
I'm going to give you, to end the show, I'm going to give you one dark horse, one sleeper. Here's a guy that in his previous 3 seasons before 2024, if you only looked at his healthy games, and there were a lot of injured games, he was a top 17 wide receiver per game all 3 years. Then he tore his ACL. Then he was terrible. Now he's back with the Chargers. He's Mike Williams. He's 31. Yeah. He's a year removed now from, he's 2 years removed from the torn ACL. We know wide receivers struggle coming off of that injury. What he needs is a lower ADOT. That 3-year stretch where he was very good per game, and one of those years he only played 3 games. So I'm stretching here with these numbers. He had an ADOT around 12 yards each year. Last year it was over 15 yards. The Chargers figured out the best way to use Mike Williams was not only as a downfield 15-yard ADOT kind of guy, was to use him as a on the high side ADOT guy, but more like 12 yards, which is much more reasonable. He was very, very productive in that 3-year stretch. He's back with the Chargers. They have an obvious void at wide receiver other than McConkey. If he were younger, I'd actually be excited about this. But he is 31, so that's why I'm just going to call him kind of a deep sleeper right now. There you go.
You could do worse with one of your last picks on draft day. The problem is that there are so many receivers that we're going to be able to sift through by the time we get to August. I'm not sure Mike Williams will be at the top of that list. And I also, back when Mike Williams was a hot enough name for fantasy, yeah, he wasn't the number 1 target getter there because Keenan Allen was there, but he wasn't too terribly far behind him. I don't know. I'd have to double check to make sure that I'm not speaking so far out of school. It could have been a couple.
You're not. In fact, I think there was a stretch where Keenan Allen was out too.
Sure.
Right. No,
I think he's there more for familiarity with the quarterback and to be at minimum a role player for them. And if he just has one of the best camps ever, then he could get on the field in 3 receiver sets.
All right. All right, Dave Richard, thank you very much. This is FFTX, and we will talk to you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.